Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to the MMA for inviting me to be here today. As Vince said, it is my first public moment in my new role, and I'm so thrilled by the topic because 6 months ago, I was in the world of agency, and as a strategist in agency, I remember this purpose conversation when it was first had. I remember it clearly. And we were suddenly getting briefs that said, write me a purpose statement, or what's our organizational purpose? Wow, to an ad agency. And now I've stepped over into client side, and now I'm actually experiencing what it feels like to work in a purposeful organization. And so I suppose that's what I wanted to speak about today was, how do we actually make this idea of purpose purposeful? Because purpose cannot come from a creative brief to an agency where you write some clever words and maybe you put them into a beautiful manifesto and you put them on a big thing on the wall. That's not going to work. So when I started thinking about this a few weeks ago, I thought, how has purpose and this conversation around purpose evolved? And it really has. It's been a conversation for a good decade, but it's changed a lot. And for me, it started much like the world of beauty pageants, where we spoke about world peace and feeding children and, saving the planet. That's where purpose began. We wrote these quite esoteric notional statements. I kid you not, when I wasn't privy to a pitch when I worked in London. It was for a financial services organization, not a local one, where one of the pitch ideas was to say that, let's have a purpose of ending poverty. Lord, if someone could do that, great. So it was this kind of world of maybe a bit overstated. So it was really kind of the star of the show for a while. And we saw this in the marketing industry. We saw this in the awards landscape. And really, there was a lot then that built after that. And it kind of, purpose became a teenager. And like all good teenagers, a lot of skepticism and a lot of pushing the boundaries and overstepping. And so, quite a lot of this was things like these articles. And, when I was preparing for this, what was really interesting is I went back into my WhatsApp chats, thank goodness for the search function. And I've got particular colleagues who used to always challenge me on this. And I have all these articles that they sent me about purpose. And so that was fantastic, going back into those chats where we debated and debated and debated. And this idea of, is purpose just a trend? Is it just about going to Cannes and winning some awards? Is it real? Is it meaningful? I don't know if any of you know Gordon Ray. He's a fantastic creative director. He used to speak about this idea of brilliant irrelevance. And not that I've got anything against Goodyear, but I don't know if you can actually read this. It said, Goodyear's new tag, the endless pursuit of forward momentum. And we enable movement so people can meet challenges, realize opportunities, and unleash new opportunities, and unleash new possibility. But, this comment here is that you sell tires. Sorry, that's meant to actually cover the swear word. My little black box doesn't cover the swear word. And then that wasn't intentional. And then the last kind of skeptic trend that kept on happening is this purpose thing's just for millennials. Just because millennials, it's about being woke, and millennials, it's important to millennials. No, it's not. If purpose is that, then it's not universal. So this was the kind of skepticism. And the overstepping is true. There has been some real overstepping. Pepsi really suffered this, and there are many examples of overstepping, and we all know them. So that was the teenage years. But I believe, and I truly feel, that purpose has grown up. And we are now in the phase of real evidence of purposes, effectiveness. Evidence that this matters, and evidence that it can have a commercial impact, which is so important. As marketing individuals, we cannot just speak in soft terms. We have to get into business realities. And we now have evidence. And Peter Field has done a lot of work, and the IPA has done a lot of work. And it should be recognized that they can now demonstrate that purpose is effective. So we are now in the more grown-up phase. And so I want to make the case for purpose. And then I want to talk a little bit about what I believe the guardrails are for doing purpose right, making purpose purposeful. Because like with anything, it'll work if it's done well, and it won't if it's not. So the case for purpose. Angela Arendt, who I love, and I think she's done amazing work. And she spoke when she was at Burberry, so this was a while ago. She spoke about the soft strategies actually having the most impact, being the most powerful. And I thought that was really important, that actually quite a lot of the softer things that you do can drive more profits. So what is the case then? And I've just thought of 3 case points for me, 3 business cases that I've evidenced or I've experienced in my journey with purpose. The first is that it's a galvanizing force. It motivates behavior. It motivates change. It can create and drive culture. And when I say that, I don't just mean that when it comes to our target audiences. I mean that when it comes to our internal audiences and our stakeholders. And you'll see this quote here from Peter Field talks about actually his case studies that he's looked at and how when purpose is done well, it can actually influence the entire value chain. Investor relations, for instance, when you can truly demonstrate how you are living to your purpose statement. The second important case for me, and the second important business case around purpose, is that it allows you to make decisions quickly, especially in tough times. Now, COVID, and this is a whole nother conversation, if you look at the brands that succeeded during COVID, they were the ones that were incredibly precise about their positioning. They were the ones who knew who they were, because then they knew how to behave. And I think that is what purpose can do for you. It can help you know who you are, so it can allow you to respond very quickly. And I've got a Standard Bank example in here because Standard Bank did an amazing job during COVID. It knew how to respond because it's a very purposeful organization. Africa is our home, we drive her growth, is known and understood by everyone in that organization. Nike also responded brilliantly. Again, a brand that has such a precise positioning. And what's interesting for me when you look at Nike and you say, what is Nike's purpose? They actually have one statement. It's their vision statement. It was there before we had this word purpose around driving, inspiring and innovating for every athlete. That is fundamental to everything that they do. And it's so singular. So it allows them to respond quickly to all sorts of events that happen in their ecosystem. And the third, and this is the one we must not forget, is that it actually opens up commercial opportunities because it is allowing you to see more broadly than your existing product framework. And this is actually a case study from Cannes, and it's worth having a look at. It's Data Tiendo, and it speaks to how they were able to use their capabilities with data to actually look at different kinds of credit scoring. So it's very purposeful, but it's also very profitable. And so I suppose just to come back to Peter Field and his report from the IPA, I think really importantly, and those who know me and the Standard Bankers know this, is I think our biggest challenge at the moment as brands is this concept of distinctiveness. I don't think it's differentiation, by the way. I think it's distinctiveness because we are struggling to grab attention. So we have to be incredibly instant in how we show up. And Peter has shown in his studies that purpose, when done well, drives distinctiveness. So this, for me, is probably the most powerful part of the business case for purpose. The last point, and I think this is important, is that we look at home. And this is YouGov data. YouGov data is an online panel. It's a very relevant and fresh panel. It's updated frequently. And it's a sentiment score. So this is obviously claimed attitude. And as you can see here, 75% of South Africans agree that they like it when a company has a moral message. Okay? 75% is quite a big statistic. And an important one to say it is important. And this is not millennials, guys. This is national representative of online base. So that's really talking about a broad audience. And there's some other great stats in there that you can see that talk to the concept of being purposeful. All right. Maybe before I jump into what I believe the formula for successful purpose-driven marketing is, I should start with a definition. Now, what I do with most challenges like this as a strategist is I go into my wonderful community of strategic friends. I have the most amazing bunch of friends and strategists that I've worked with over the years. And so I said, let's go out for dinner. And I asked, I said, okay, what is the definition for purpose? And we debated and we spoke about it. And then I Googled, and Google comes up with a number of different things. So there were 3 primary kind of statements around purpose that I thought were worth looking at. The first is what Forbes said. I think it's quite a good one. How your brand makes a difference in the lives of the person who is using it. How does it make a difference in their life? It's very role-driven. What is the role you play? GWI, in an article, said brand purpose is a company's reason for existing beyond just making money. I'm not sure about that one really, because I think it's dangerous to divorce the idea of purpose and profitability. And then Simon Sinek. Of course, we all know Simon. start with the why, a really important part of this purpose debate. But none of those feels quite like it does it for me. So when we had our dinner and we chatted about this, we came up with the idea of impacts. What impacts do we want to have ultimately? And I have to credit this to Gabby Kuhn-Bernstein, anyone who knows her or anyone who's looking for a purpose strategist, she's your person. We spoke about impact and ultimately. Those words together I think are great. Because what does ultimately say? It says it's universal. It says it's broad. It's not just a target audience. It's about internal. It's about stakeholders. It's about societies. And impact is about the lasting, the final outcome. And I think those together start to allow me to define what a purpose statement would be. So maybe one of the questions we ask is, what impact do we want to have ultimately? And we start to then be able to have the conversation about what is our purpose. Okay, so what is the formula? This is my formula. Take from it what you will, add to it, challenge me on it, send me a message and agree with it. But I think this is how we can make purpose purposeful. The starting point is that we must stop talking about purpose-driven marketing, because it's not about purpose-driven marketing. It's about purpose-driven decision-making. And it needs to, therefore, really permeate the organization. If it sits in the world of brand and marketing, it always feels a bit peripheral. It has to be about decisions, and it has to be your guide to those decisions. And everyone, therefore, in the organization needs to understand and believe it. Okay, but then how? So 4 C's. Those who know me I like alliteration. Helps me remember. Clear. Start with credible. Credible, compelling, clear, and consistent. Okay. So those are the 4 C's I came up with. Credible, compelling, clear, and consistent. And I'm going to go through some examples of these. Isn't it wonderful to do a talk just after Cannes? Because you have case studies galore to use. So I've got some of those. And there are many more if you go and look at the Lions reel. But credible for me is always the starting point. Is it authentic and believable? Do I believe that you as organization X can play this role ultimately, can have that impact ultimately? And of course, you can't even start this conversation without Patagonia. Very credible. Why? Because they put their money where their mouth is. They've given away their profits to the climate crisis. They've given away their business to climate change. And they've been doing this for the longest time. Their "don't buy this jacket" ad is a very old ad. And I mean, not many brands go to market and say, "don't buy my product." So that was the starting point of them really having credible purpose as baked into their organization. And then more recently, actually, their statement around giving profits, all profits, to the climate crisis. So very, very powerful and credible statements. The next, and I always have anxiety about this, is it Chipotle or Chipotle? I think it's Chipotle. Anyone know? Yeah? Chipotle? Okay. Chipotle. There are lots of different options coming from the audience. But this is a case study of what they do. And for me, also incredibly credible, because I understand why they, as a QSR brand, as a fast food, as a food brand, is doing what they're doing. I buy it. So I'm going to play this reel and you'll see. Can a burrito change the world?
What if this can change the world? A burrito.
Yeah. Hold on. That's a silly question. What does this have to do with this? Well, as it turns out, in the world of food, a lot. And while pointing out the problem is nice, changing the future takes, well, change.
Chipotle is kicking off the new year by supporting farmers across the country who are committed to growing real and responsibly raised food.
Like our Young Farmers program that helps make going organic an easier option while helping the next generation of farmers get started. Or the Illuminaries Project, an accelerator program empowering the next generation of farmers. And the FarmLink Project, preventing food waste and feeding the hungry while we're at it. Or Tractor Drinks, an organic, non-GMO beverage that Chipotle sells and gives 5% of the profits to farmers. In Chipotle Farmers Market, a website where consumers could buy directly from our suppliers during COVID.
We wanted to figure out how we bring a digital transformation to these small farm, local farm that are so vital to Chipotle, but everybody in America.
Or Chipotle Goods, turning things like avocados into a clothing line. Even our Real Foodprint app that tracks the water, air, and soil in every Chipotle meal. Bill?
An order like yours helps support 0.9 square feet of organic land.
And the change from all these initiatives combined proves that doing good is good for conversation and pretty good for business too. And even though the answer to our silly question seemed clear, we decided to ask America, just to be sure.
What if this can change the world? Or something?
Weird as it may be, it's undeniable. To change the future, you have to change the future of food.
So I think a brilliant, brilliant case study, and so believable to me. And they have a right to play. And I couldn't leave this opportunity without doing a little bit of a punt. Because actually this concept of food waste is a significant one. And Standard Bank during COVID also identified this opportunity with their One Farm Share program, where they managed to work with commercial clients, big agricultural clients that had food waste and had produce that they couldn't get to market, and connect them through using technology into environments where the food was needed through NGOs. So again, this is not a marketing initiative. This is a purpose-driven decision that has become now a very sustainable and powerful program within the organization. So that's about being credible. The next, of course, is you have to be compelling. You can't choose a purpose that's not motivating, that doesn't inspire people, that doesn't move people. So it has to resonate with the audiences that are important, that matter to you. And this is maybe a slightly unexpected example, but I think it is a brilliant one that comes from H&M. And I think this is about really having a brilliant insight to inform a very purposeful proposition that they took to market.
Jason, I need you to turn around and look at yourself in the mirror right now.
I know today is a big day for you.
I know you might be a little nervous.
Remember to breathe. Remember to breathe.
You have everything you need to get what you want in this world. I don't want to see any pouting on that face, any wrinkles, any frown lines. I don't want to see anything but you holding your head up like the king.
And remember, you are my greatest dreams realized.
You have prepared for this. You are ready. Like, you can't be more ready than you are right now. You know what I'm saying? You were born fabulous. And I don't want anyone to make you feel less than.
Then you go into that room and show them who you are.
And you be you, that's your job in the bag. I love you, baby.
Isn't that brilliant? 1 second suit. Just such a brilliant, again, I mean, it's completely credible because it's a clothing brand, but it's so compelling because it just talks to that emotional need state when you're going into an interview where not everyone can afford maybe to have the new suit. So a really brilliant example for me of being compelling for that audience. The point about being clear talks back to my point about distinctiveness. If you can find a purpose statement and a purpose decision framework that actually builds your distinctiveness, I think you've truly nailed it, because now everything you do is actually positioning you. And it's also about category entry points. Can you own more of the mind space when your audiences are thinking about your category? So can you find a way of translating your purpose so that it not only makes your brand easier to think of, but so that you think of it more often? And the very best example, and I've actually got 2 videos, I think I'll only play one because I'm a bit cognizant of time, is Corona. Now, I don't know, hopefully everyone can quickly associate Corona with the sun. That's what you should be thinking when I say Corona. It's what they want you to think. It's how they've kind of wired you. You think about sunsets, and you think about sundowners, and you think about limes, probably the 2 things. And these case studies talk to those 2 different things. So what Corona did, it's not an obvious purpose case study, but I think it is a really good way of showing distinctiveness through some more lateral thinking, is that they created sunset insurance. Brilliant, isn't it? And such a good idea. Non-traps.
We've all been on vacations where it's rained the entire time.
with no sun or sunsets in sight.
Man, it's rain.
Corona, a brand already famous for beaches and limes, wanted to claim sunsets too. So we set out to ensure people never miss a sunset by launching the first ever insurance from a beer brand. Introducing Corona Sunset Insurance, helping travelers claim their lost sunset back. Collaborating with China's leading travel platform, Qunar, to anyone who booked a trip to the beach, we provided Corona Sunset Insurance for no extra cost. With the insurance, travelers who didn't get to enjoy a sunset during their vacations could claim a flight-changing service free of charge. Simply by moving their return date, it ensured they'd see beautiful sunsets. Those that claimed the insurance didn't just get back their sunset. They also got an exclusive experience with our sunset insurance guides to make their beach vacations even more memorable. Partnering with hundreds of local guides across China, our experts took them to breathtaking, once-in-a-lifetime sunsets.
我已经很久没有旅行了，结果来了这里之后一直下雨，还好有日落保险拯救了我的这个假期。
这是我们的蜜月，它必须是完美的。还好买了日落保险，我相信我们会永远记住我们的日落。
Over 1 million people took out sunset insurance, and 2,600 people claimed their sunset back. With millions of fans sharing sunsets they would have never had. Helping Corona's brand love reach a historical high. Because no one can control the weather, but you can get Corona Sunset Insurance.
So brilliant. And certainly if they've insured and given you a flight change, you're going to drink Corona with lots of love in your heart. The next case I'm not going to play is actually related to the limes, where they've got a massive program all the way into farming the right lime, supporting the farmers to create and farm those limes. So really just taking their distinctive assets, the sunset and the lime, and saying, how do we now really purposefully engage in those ecosystems? So I'm going to quickly flick through this one. And then, some other examples. So these are the brands that, really have found the link between what the brand does and the issue. And this is just where the formula comes to life. So Skittles, this is their Pride campaign. It's an old one, but they continue to do it. We're on Pride. During Pride Month, they give the rainbow back. So isn't that lovely? And it's so linked again. I mean, Skittles is about the rainbow. It's about color and about fun. So they're using that distinctiveness to do something really purposeful, which means that it's really credible. It's very compelling. And now it's incredibly clear. So they give the rainbow back and they go out with their black and white packs. And Bisto, you wouldn't think of that as a purpose-driven organization, but actually they've done amazing work about understanding the role of dinner time and gravy over a roast in the UK. And they've made it all about togetherness. And lots of work around getting people back around dinner tables and Bisto being part of that. So again, for me, that's credible. Bisto does dinner, get it. Compelling, because being together with my family is important. And clear, because Bisto is about dinner time. So a brilliant kind of those examples that just show you the formula come to life. And the last, and this is for me probably the most important part of everything that we do in marketing, is consistency. Every piece of effectiveness evidence shows us that creative consistency is what drives effectiveness. So the same applies to purpose. We have to be relentlessly consistent, but allow ourselves to move at the speed of culture. So that doesn't mean a stuck record, but it means knowing what your guardrails are and sticking to them, but allowing yourself to operate within the cultural nuances that exist. And there's no brand that does this better than Dove. So if we think, does anyone remember when they launched Real Beauty? I think it was probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I was living in London at the time. I remember it really, really well. And it was probably one of the first brands that managed to create a platform like this. So for over 20 years, they have had the same idea. That is how you really do purposeful decision making. And if we start to look at some of the campaigns that have existed over this time, you'll remember, do you remember going back 2002 to those ads they put into market where they actually reframed the industry completely, talking about real beauty? And then they came out with more in 2012. They had that amazing do you see yourself this way? That's sketching that they were doing with people and actually evidencing how people perceive themselves versus what they really look like. And then amazing work during COVID too. But the last example I'm going to play is one that hits me every time because I have teenage daughters. But it was just when I saw it, and I saw it as a consumer, it really, really was powerful to me because I was experiencing exactly what this case study speaks to. So how they do this, and maybe this for me is kind of one of the most powerful learnings from how to be consistent, is they ask this question. They say, what is real beauty in this moment? So they're not changing real beauty, but they're allowing it to adapt to its cultural context. So what is real beauty in this moment? And that's how they've managed to reinvent, but stay incredibly true to their purpose. So as it says, this is quite an emotive piece, but I think it's maybe for me one of their most powerful because it resonates with me in this moment.
And I'll sit down and I will lead in the birth.
You are so beautiful to me.
Good job, Mary.
You are so...
Hello, we're Mary and Annie's comedy show.
to me. Can I see weary Lord? Everything the whole you're everything I need. You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful.
If you want the small waist this summer when your favorite product is here. All right, that's it.
So be. Can't you see? Everything I hold, you're everything I... Get yourself a tape measure. Thigh gaps are in. You are so beautiful to... You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? You're everything I hope for, everything I need. You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see?
So a really powerful piece of work. And when they did that, they came out then with guides for parents. So as a mother, I had content I could send to my daughters. I had content that I could read about how to deal with issues. So really, they actually behaved in a way that I believed. So they've taken this concept of real beauty that started, maybe we kind of thought, oh, that's a nice ad idea. You know, not everyone looks the same. And it's become this incredibly powerful, purposeful guide for everything they do. And they do many things. So I suppose this is also a bit about behavior is truth. I believe you because you actually do act. So the Crown Act, they've managed to actually get legislation changed in many states in America around how you can wear your hair, natural hair. They've created a photo library, an image library that's far more inclusive around beauty. That's their Show Us program. And then the Self-Esteem Project. So incredibly powerful decisions and actions that are being taken off the back of this. Again, I'm going to go through the 4 things. It's absolutely credible coming from Dove. They're a beauty brand. It's completely compelling because they've made it relevant in the moment. It's really, really clear because it speaks to such a truth, and it's been consistent for over 20 years. So that for me is kind of the killer formula if we can get it right. So, just to put a finer point on it, you can see the quote here really about, most of our growth is coming from long-term initiatives. And so that's a marketing lesson for all of us. So I just wanted to end by saying, maybe out of all of this today, if you're sitting thinking, how do I impact this? What changes do we need to make? Or are we doing it right? I would pose these 4 questions. So maybe the first is, can we shift our purpose from being a bit of a layer on top to being truly baked into the organization? How do we move it out of a marketing department or out of a brand campaign and really make it truly permeating the organization and the organizational business decisions? How do we move from this idea of kind of seeking buy-in from people when we do purpose work, approvals to actually creating a narrative that people know how to act on? So it's not campaigns and it's not initiatives. It's actually something that people understand and know, therefore, what decisions to make. So from buy-in to act on. And then, how do we allow our purpose to really build greater distinctiveness for our brands? So it's not a brand purpose statement. It's a purpose that is baked in, allows me to act, but is linked to what I want to be distinctively known for. And the category entry points, very, very importantly. And then the last one, and this is what my points around Dove, how do I make sure that the purpose that we entrench is timeless, so that it's not changing in 3 years' time, but it's also timely, so that it can be relevant and it can respond to culture. So I suppose those 4 things, from a layer to baked in, from having buy-in to actually allowing people to act on it, really being about kind of distinctiveness. So not just a good thing to do, but really, really linked to what we want to be famous for. And then finally, from timeless and timely. So it can be long-term, but incredibly relevant in the moment. Thank you.